In a quiet village nestled among the green hills of the interior of Portugal, Tomás, a 38-year-old man, leads a simple life with his wife, Clara. He is a carpenter, a skilled craftsman who spends his days carving furniture in his workshop at the back of the stone house they built together. The village, with its cobblestone streets and orange roofs, exudes calm. But for Tomás, the long days and the silence of the routine weigh like the wood dust that covers his hands. Clara, manager of a small inn outside Lisbon, frequently travels for work, leaving Tomás with the lonely echo of his own tools. The tone of the village is serene, but there is a subtle restlessness in the air, like the wind blowing through the pines at dusk. Tomás isn't one to seek adventures. He prefers the predictable comfort of his bench. But the void left by Clara's absences makes him question whether that's all there is to life. The conflict begins one autumn afternoon, when a strange sound breaks the stillness, an insistent creaking coming from the house next door, where Dona Lucia, a 59-year-old widow, lives. She is a gentle figure, often seen watering her azaleas, or offering a shy wave over the wooden fence that separates the yards. Since her husband, Antonio, passed away 3 years ago, she has lived alone, surrounded by memories. Tomás hesitates, wiping the sweat from his forehead with his shirt sleeve. Maybe it's just the wind in the old windows, he thinks. But the creaking persists, now accompanied by a slight muffled scream. Worried, he puts down the hammer and walks to the neighboring house, his heart racing with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The door is ajar and he calls, "Dona Lucia, is everything okay?" With no response, he enters, guided by the sound to the kitchen, where he finds her struggling with a broken tap, water gushing everywhere. She laughs, embarrassed, and he runs to help her, not knowing that this moment would plant the seed of something bigger. I would like to take a brief break to ask for your like and subscription to the channel. You are helping us a lot with this simple gesture, and I would like to know which city you watch us from. Dona Lucia's kitchen is chaos when Tomás arrives. Water runs down the tiled floor, and she, with wet hands, tries to contain the leak. "What a disaster, Tomás. I'm sorry about that," she says, laughing, her gray hair falling into her eyes. He smiles, takes a wrench and fixes the tap with the practicality of someone who lives with tools. "It's nothing, neighbor. I'm glad I listened." Her relief is genuine, and she insists on offering coffee to say thanks. Tomás accepts, sitting at the rustic wooden table as the warm aroma fills the air. Dona Lucia is more talkative than he imagined. She tells stories about Antonio, who was a fisherman, and how she learned how to preserve sardines with him. His voice is soft, but carries a vivacity that contrasts with the loneliness that Tomás feels at home. He realizes that he likes listening to her, that the silences of the village seem less heavy there. In the following days, repairing the tap becomes an excuse for casual encounters. She asks for help with a stuck window. He offers a bench he made in the workshop. "You have golden hands, Tomás," she says, admiring her work, and he blushes, not knowing how to respond. Clara, meanwhile, calls from Lisbon. "I'll arrive on Saturday, love. Is everything okay there?" Her voice sounds distant, and Tomás murmurs an automatic yes, but his thoughts are on the fence that separates the backyards. The obstacle arises when Dona Lucia invites him to help her prune the azaleas. Working side by side, the scent of the flowers mixes with hers. Something sweet and ancient, and their arms brush by accident. "I'm sorry," he says, but she just smiles. "You have nothing to apologize for." The tension grows, an invisible thread that pulls them, but that Tomas tries to ignore. Clara returns at the weekend, full of stories about the inn, but he is distracted, his eyes wandering to the window. "You're too quiet," she notes, frowning. He forces a smile. "It's just tired." But deep down, he knows that something has changed, and the conflict between duty and desire begins to deepen. Autumn advances in the village, and the bar, golden leaves fall like a carpet over the cobblestones. Tomas tries to maintain the routine, hammer, sandpaper, varnish, but his thoughts escape to Dona Lucia. One afternoon, while Clara is in Lisbon again, he sees her in the backyard, struggling with a ladder to reach a blocked gutter. "Let me help you," he offers, climbing the steps with ease. She watches him from below, and when he comes down, their eyes meet for a moment too long. "You're an angel, Tomas," she says, her voice low, and he feels heat creep up his neck. The landmark event comes on a night of dense fog. Dona Lucia knocks on Tomas's door, bringing a plate of cod. "Cakes! I did too much. I thought about you," he explains, hesitantly. He invites her in, and they sit in the simple room, lit by a yellowish lamp. The conversation flows. She talks about a painting that Antonio painted, hanging on the wall, at home, and how she misses sharing the little things. Tomas hears himself saying, "I miss that too, you know. Sometimes it feels like I live just to work." There's a pause, the air thick, and then she places her hand over his. A light, but electric touch. "You deserve more than this," he whispers. Tomas's heart races, torn between retreating and giving in. He slowly pulls his hand away, murmuring, "Clara is coming tomorrow." Dona Lucia nods, but her eyes say more than words. That night, alone, he finds an old notebook of Antonio's in the backyard, brought by the wind. Inside, a faded note. "Lucia, never stop dancing, even if I'm not there." It's not a letter like in the original story, but a reminder of the life she lost, and which she now seeks in Tomas. The revelation shakes him. He realizes that she is not just a lonely neighbor, but someone who really sees him, something that Clara, in her absence, rarely does. The fog outside reflects your inner confusion, and new challenges arise. Resist temptation, or confront the emptiness you carry. The village's fog persists over the next few days, enveloping the hills like a veil. Thomas carries Antonio's notebook in his jacket pocket, the words "never stop dancing" echoing in his mind. He tries to concentrate on his work, carving an oak chair, but each hammer blow feels like an echo of his restlessness. Dona Lucia doesn't appear at the fence, and he finds himself looking at her house, imagining what she's doing between those stone walls. Guilt eats away at him. He's married. Clara trusts him. But the emptiness he feels next to her is a weight he can't explain. Clara returns at the weekend, bringing a bottle of Douro wine. "Shall we toast, Tomas? It's been a while since we've been like this," she says, smiling. He agrees, but the wine tastes bitter as they talk about the inn and the furniture he finished. "You look different," she observes, eyes narrowed. "It's the tiredness of the workshop," he lies, hating how easily the words come out. That night, while Clara sleeps, he goes out into the yard, the cold air biting his skin. He hears music coming from Dona Lucia's house, a sad, melancholic fado. Without thinking, he walks there and knocks on the door. She opens it, surprised, wearing a shawl over her shoulders. "Tomas, what happened?" He hesitates, then shows the notebook. I found this. It's about you. She takes the object, fingers trembling, and reads in silence. Antonio loved fado. He said I danced like no one else. He murmurs, his eyes teary. Tomas swallows. And you stopped? She stares at him, vulnerable. So far, yes. There is an implicit invitation, and he knows he is on a precipice. The decision is difficult. I can't do this to Clara, he says, his voice hoarse, but his feet don't move. Dona Lucia nods, sad but understanding. Sometimes we just want to live a little longer, that's all. He returns home, fado still echoing, and realizes that he needs to face what he feels. For Clara, for Lucia, for himself. It's the beginning of a transformation. He wants more from life, but at what cost? The tension in the village reaches its peak on a night of fine rain, the sound of drops drumming on the red-tiled roofs. Tomas is in the workshop, finishing a table, but his mind is in shambles. Dona Lucia's fado still resonates in her memory, and Antonio's notebook, now kept in a drawer, seems to pulse like a living heart. Clara is at home, cooking a stew, the smell of garlic and bay leaves filling the air. Are you coming to dinner? Tomas? She calls, her voice light, but he feels the weight of each word. He drops the hammer, takes a deep breath, and walks to Dona Lucia's house, the rain wetting his shirt. He knocks on the door, his heart in his throat. She opens it, eyes wide, shawl falling from one shoulder. Tomas, what? He cuts her off. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I can't stop thinking about you. The silence between them is dense, broken only by the sound of rain. She steps forward hesitantly and touches his face, her fingers cold against his warm skin. You don't have to say anything, she whispers, and then pulls him inside. The scene is intense. He kisses her, first shyly, then with an urgency that breaks down all barriers. His hands find her gray hair, soft as feathers, as she holds him against her, the heat of their bodies contrasting with the cold of the night. They fall onto the couch, shadows dancing on the wall to the sound of rain, and for a moment the world outside disappears. But then, at the peak of passion, she pulls away, panting. Wait, I found this today, he says, picking up an old photo of Antonio with a message on the back. Live for both of us, Lucia. Her voice shakes. He wanted me to be happy, but what about you, Tomas? What do you want? The conflict explodes. He looks at her, desire fighting guilt, and murmurs, I don't know anymore. He runs out in the rain, Clara's stew waiting. At home. But the decision has been made. He has crossed a line, and now he needs to face the consequences, whatever they may be. The rain stops at dawn, leaving the village enveloped in a damp silence. Tomas returns home soaked, the taste of Dona Lucia's kiss still on his lips. Clara is in the kitchen. The stew is cold in the pan, and she looks at him with inquisitive eyes. Where were you? He asks, his voice firm but shaky. He hesitates, guilt tightening his chest. I went for a walk. I couldn't sleep. She doesn't insist, but the look in her eyes says something has changed, an invisible crack between them. He spends the day in the workshop, hammering wood aimlessly, trying to erase the previous night. Donna Lucia does not appear at the fence, and Tomas avoids looking at her house. Antonio's photo, with its message, weighs on his mind, a request for life that he turned into betrayal. Days later, Clara travels again to Lisbon, and he is left alone with his thoughts. One afternoon, while sweeping the yard, he sees Donna Lucia leaving with a suitcase. "I'm going to visit my sister in Porto," she says over the fence, her voice neutral. "I think I need some time." He nods, not having the courage to ask more. "Take care of yourself, Tomas," she adds, and he murmurs, "You too," feeling an emptiness growing. Without the case to fuel him, Tomas confronts his life with Clara. When she returns, he calls her to talk. "I lost myself, Clara. I don't know how to tell you this, but I feel like I'm not the same anymore." She looks at him, tears in her eyes. "Did you find someone else?" He shakes his head, but the half-truth doesn't convince her. "So what changed?" she asks. "I've changed," he admits, his voice hoarse. They decide to take a break. Not a divorce, but a breather. Clara goes to her parents' house in Coimbra, and Tomas stays in the village, the silence now a mirror of his soul. The resolution is bittersweet. He doesn't lose everything, but he gains clarity. The affair with Donna Lucia was a cry for something more, and now he needs to discover what that means on his own. The village remains quiet, but he feels that, for the first time, he is listening to himself. Months later, the Portuguese village wakes up to the shy spring sun, the pine trees swaying in the light wind. Tomas still lives in the stone house, but the workshop now has a new shine. He has started to carve smaller pieces, like music boxes sold at the local fair. The sound of the hammer is lighter, almost rhythmic, as if it accompanied the birds that returned to the hills. Clara didn't return, but they exchanged sporadic messages. "I went to see the sea in Coimbra yesterday. I remembered you," she wrote, once, and he replied, "The sea here is beautiful too." There is longing, but no promise of return. Donna Lucia reappears in the village one day without a suitcase, just with a shy smile. "I'm back to stay," he says over the fence, watering the azaleas that survived the winter. Tomas greets her with a wave, his heart racing, but he keeps his distance. "I made you a music box," he offers, handing it over days later. She turns the crank, and a soft fado echoes. "Antonio would like that," she murmurs, and he smiles. "I think so." There are no more touches or confessions. What happened between them remained in the rain that night. A memory that changed them, but does not define them. Tomas reflects as he walks along the cobblestone streets at dusk. He realizes that the emptiness he felt was not just for Clara or Lucia, but for himself. Infidelity was a mistake, but also an awakening. He wants to live, not just exist. At the fair, a customer praises her music box. "You have soul in that," he thanks. Her, feeling that little by little he is finding his own. The future is uncertain. Clara may return or not. Donna Lucia will continue to be the kind neighbor, but Tomas no longer fears silence. The village, with its shadows and lights, is the stage for his redemption. He picks up a piece of wood and begins to carve, the sound of the knife cutting into the surface like a sigh of relief. The lesson remains in the air, sweet and striking. Sometimes it is in the cracks that life finds space to grow. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us.